Thanks, Bodu, for giving me the opportunity to present my research, and thanks a lot for taking this initiative to start the CQT Graduate Club talks. So yeah, I mean, it's a nice way to get to know what different people are working, and I think in long term, probably this could lead to some kind of intergroup collaborations where once like you get to know right that what people are working on. So I think thanks a lot for starting this the series. So yeah, I mean, so today I will talk about simulating quantum dynamics with NISQ devices and kind of give a summary of a few papers that I recently wrote with some of the nice collaborators that I'm lucky to work with. And yeah, I mean, so this is the center, the place where, I mean, we all know, right? I mean, this is normally to introduce to people who are, outside Singapore. So yeah, I mean, like, no need to talk about it in detail. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I will talk about a bit about talk a bit about myself. So this is, like a research overview of different stuff that have worked during last 3 4 years. So I'm interested in quantum foundations, quantum computation, information, AI, and combinatorial optimization. And I have worked on like how to use understanding quantum foundations and how to use ideas from quantum foundations for device certification. So some task in quantum computation or something. And along this way, like I worked on self-testing and related protocols. I have also worked a bit on AI and its applications for quantum foundations. And then like something which is relevant to this talk is this part here, which I will focus. Like you can see this, focus glass here, which says that like NISQ algorithm is kind of the focus of this talk. So yeah, I mean, the goal of this slide is to invite collaborations, and if you have ideas, suggestions, criticism, please let me know, and we could potentially chat sometime, and yeah, that could lead to some interesting results, something potentially some nice understanding of the physical world and mathematics. So yeah, I mean, this slide is about the call for going beyond quantum supremacy. So I mean, there was this experiment from Google, and then this was news, right? That people achieved some experimental breakthrough where they managed to uh, perform a task which is classically difficult to perform, basically classically intractable. At least that's what was claimed. And over time, people have tried to come up with better and better spoofing mechanisms or the better simulation mechanisms where they could, get the results of what Google did. Uh, Also, recently there was a, I think, experiment from China where they tried to do like another quantum supremacy experiment. But the point is that though these experiments are nice and powerful and say something fundamental about quantum computation, that the task that has been chosen like for demonstrating quantum supremacy or huge quantum computational advantage are not practical ones, not industrially relevant. So this will not pay the bills like the circuit sampling tasks that they perform. And if let's see that this thing goes on for long, there is a potential of quantum winter in the sense that a lot of money is coming to quantum technologies, and let's say if they do not deliver the promises, uh, then I mean the enthusiasm can go down, and then as it has happened in artificial intelligence, similar thing could happen with quantum. And with all the hype and yeah, like going on around, I think it's very important that we keep on working on something which takes advantage of the currently available quantum devices, and uh, and do something practical out of them. And along these lines, there was this notion of a noisy intermediate scale quantum devices, or the NISQ, like NISQ, and in the era in which these devices are, like they are called NISQ era. This word was proposed by John Preskill, And he said that the currently devices, they are noisy, and they are like their size is like uh, 50 to 100, like at qubit something. And yeah, like, and we do not expect to have more than 1,000 qubits in a few years, let's say. So what, but still, like, these devices are powerful, and what we can do with them. And recently two review papers like came, one on variational quantum algorithm, and the other on like more general class of noisy intermediate scale quantum algorithms. And yeah, like, if you are interested, do check out these reviews, and that can be like a good starting point to look at what's happening in this field. So then one can ask, like, by the way, if you have question or anything, like, please stop me, like, let's try to keep it interactive, like yeah.
Yeah, that would
So
be great actually.
yeah. So the goal is that like where to look for practical quantum advantage. And there are, like, few areas where one could think of, like quantum simulation, combinatorial optimization, quantum chemistry, machine learning, and so on. But yeah, like, something which is quite promising is this quantum simulation, which like even Feynman proposed, like back in 1981, that nature is not classical. So if you want to make a simulation of nature, you better make it quantum mechanical. And it's a wonderful problem because it doesn't look so easy. So yeah, I mean, this task of quantum simulation is definitely challenging, interesting, and can help us understand a lot of mysteries of the universe in which we live in. So yeah, and yeah, like, and you can also do some practical task, like out of it. So yeah, it's a frontier where you could try to get practical quantum advantage potentially. So the simulation problem, though one can talk in general with respect to open quantum systems and all, but let's focus on closed quantum systems. So like we have some well, so this is a simulation problem. So you have some Hamiltonian, you have given a description of some Hamiltonian H and some initial state. And your task is to produce a final state within some error tolerance, like epsilon at time t. And yeah, so you have to simulate this, basically simulate these dynamics given some initial state. And we say that the Hamiltonian H acting on n qubits can be efficiently simulated if for any non-negative time, sorry, positive time and positive epsilon, you can have a quantum circuit U which consists of poly number of, poly number of qubits, time, and 1 by epsilon gates, such that the unitary that you like that you mimic using your quantum circuit uh, is basically epsilon close to uh, the epsilon e to the power minus iht. So basically, this is what you want, and this is what you implement, and like the quantum circuit unitary should be closed, like epsilon closed. And this problem is like, you can call it a difficult problem. You can say that it captures, like the difficulty of the hardest problems which you can solve using quantum computer. So there is some technical word, like called VQP hard for that, like and because you can implement any quantum computation by a sequence of Hamiltonian evolution. So yeah, I mean, that's nice, because now like you can focus on it and use it as even as a building blocks in different quantum algorithm as primitives and all. And in fact, like algorithms like HHL and all, like they use like Hamiltonian simulation, and it's a quite nice primitive. So I think it's good to work on this problem. And yeah, like yeah, like apart from just like looking for simulation, one can have like use it as a primitive. So that's nice. Yeah.
Sure. I have
Yeah.
one question here.
Yeah.
In which norm is the unitary supposed to be close to e to the minus ht?
I think you can take Frobenius, for example. Yeah.
Is it, it's Frobenius norm, is it?
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, like Frobenius or Trace. No, I'm not quite sure, but I think I mean, it's okay. Like you just take close in one of the norm. I think it's just a constant. Like each of the norm are constant related to each other, right? All of
No,
them
no,
are.
no. The
in the
L1
metric
norm
form.
and L infinity norm and L1 and L2 are not constant factor.
No. I'm talking. Say, maybe you could take. I think Frobenius would be better because then like just kind of approximate element wise something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then like what are the different approaches which one can like think of, like the existing approaches at the moment? And yeah, so one can think about the approaches that we have is like analog approaches, or and within analog you could have like fault tolerant or NISQ approach. So this fault tolerant, I mean, like for analog devices we do not have any notion of error correction at the moment, and that's an open problem. So yeah, I mean, one can think of like how to come up with like a fault tolerant approach for the analog, but yeah, one like but that's not available at the moment. Then in digital approach you could have like fault tolerant or NISQ, and our focus would be like a NISQ digital approach, like we will use circuits and and there is another approach which is called analog digital. So this is all the existing approach. I mean, like this is my classification, like I mean and yeah, like based on my understanding this is how I classify. So yeah, like different people could have like different classifications. And a very nice kind of a roadmap paper came in PRX Quantum, where they talk about what are like many authors around the globe. They came wrote this quantum simulators, architectures and opportunities. So what are different experimental setups, and like how could one try to like perform quantum simulation using them? And yeah, like people are trying different approaches. Like I will not focus on that, but I think the Rydberg atoms and so on. And I think Mujahid, you work on Rydberg atoms, right? Oh, maybe he's not there. Okay, so yeah, so I mean it's quite promising, and I think it's a very nice review, nice paper. So I think if you are interested, please have a look at it in detail. So this is the like the summary of the existing NISQ algorithm for simulating quantum dynamics. So this is like variational quantum simulator, diagonalization based, so on. So this algorithm, the quantum assisted simulators and the truncated Taylor quantum simulator have been developed by our group, like yeah, like recently. And actually you can show that these variational quantum simulators, they are a special case of quantum assisted simulators. And yeah, and using something called iterative simulators and quantum assisted simulator, we came up with this truncated Taylor quantum simulators. And yeah, I will explain like some of these, and like our approach and how can they help us, like so if you want to look at some of them, maybe you could read these reviews and get an understanding of the existing NISQ algorithm for simulating quantum dynamics. So the first approach that we discussed is called variational quantum simulator approach. So are you guys like familiar with VQE?
I am a bit familiar, but yeah, maybe if you want to give some short intro, it should be good.
Yeah, so like maybe like in the audience, like if somebody says that like does somebody want that? Okay, anyway, so maybe I'll just like like slightly just mention it. So we have like this Schrodinger equation, and we want to like simulate that using some circuit, let's say like a parametric quantum circuit. One of the approaches for that is like based on a variational principle called McLachlan variational principle. Why I talked about VQE is because VQE is also like basically based on a variational principle, which is the regular Rayleigh-Ritz variational principle of quantum mechanics. And what it says that if you try to find the, let's say, the ground state, you could start with some parametric quantum state, some ansatz, and you can tune the parameters of the ansatz, and you can calculate the expectation value. And because you know that the ground state is the minimum energy eigenstate, the best that you could get is, I mean, the smallest that you could get is the ground state energy. So basically, you have always this guarantee that you cannot, go beyond the ground state energy. So you can, keep on decreasing, keep on tuning the parameter such that the energy decreases. So the VQE is more like, is a quantum circuit based implementation of variational principle of quantum mechanics. So you take your quantum state and represent it as some parametric quantum circuit. In variational quantum simulator, basically you can think about, it's a dynamical variational principle. It's not like the static one. In the static one, you try to find the ground state. Here you try to simulate a dynamics. And again, you have some variational principle, but the goal is to, mimic the dynamics of the Schrodinger equation. So what it says that, again, you can take some parametric quantum circuit, let's say phi, which has, parameter theta. And if this quantity is equal to 0, then this will induce some dynamics on how theta should be updated, such that it mimics the evolution of the quantum state psi under the action of the Hamiltonian H. So if you solve it, you get this equation here. This Ai is a real part and then Ci imaginary part. So if you calculate the overlap matrix Aij and Ci, then that can give you, a small differential equation in the parameter space of theta. And yeah, by solving it, you can mimic the dynamics of the quantum state, which might lie in a very large dimensional space. So it's very simple algorithm. First, you calculate the overlap matrices A and C using quantum computer. Then you solve differential equation using classical computer, this one. Then you update your unsought quantum state. And then again, you run the same step every time. So you have a new theta, then you update your psi theta, and then you calculate the overlap matrices again, and then you again solve it. And in this way, you keep on doing it. And basically, if you want to simulate up to some capital time t, you basically run this 1, 2, 3 in a loop. Yeah. So if you want to look at it in detail, you can study this PRX paper, and also a very nice kind of a review style paper came in Quantum, like theory of variational quantum simulation, where you can look at this in detail. So very nice algorithm. Another algorithm is, based on diagonalization, which is called variational fast forwarding. I will skip it, if somebody is interested, maybe they can ask me later. So yeah, it's basically a diagonalization based approach where you have some approximation of the exponential minus IH delta t, and then you diagonalize it and then use that for evolution and so on. But one of the problem with this algorithm, is this classical quantum feedback loop. So you have a quantum computer and you have a classical computer, and you perform some measurement on the quantum computer, you send it to classical computer, and you see that this feedback loop leads to lots of it makes the whole process very slow, in the sense that while the quantum computer is doing something, classical computer is sitting idle. When classical computer is doing something, quantum computer is sitting idle. And then often when you access the quantum computer in a queue manner, sometimes you have to wait in a queue, if you access via some IBM through some, let's say, cloud or something, and you see that on a regular day, there are many jobs in line and you have to wait in queue and all. So even for 10 qubit case, sometimes it can be really a difficult problem, and I mean not a difficult problem, but a really time wise not very good, so we do not want this kind of feedback loops. And I would say that almost all of the existing variational quantum algorithms, they have this bottleneck. So one needs to remove them, remove the feedback loop. Yeah. Other issue is the overlap matrices which I mentioned, and to calculate this, because these overlap matrices can be in general complex, and to calculate the complex number, basically you need the real part as well as imaginary part, which means you need some kind of circuit which uses a controlled unitary, where so you can tune, for example, here a value of b which can be 0 or 1 depending on whether you want the real part or imaginary part. But my experimentalist friends can tell that this kind of control unitary implementation of that is very challenging. And we cannot scale these devices, these algorithms, let's say even for the cases where we, like controlled unitary, where this unitary acts on 4 qubits or 3 qubits, like, I mean, it's so difficult. So yeah, I mean, even though in the NISQ era, the many people are using such kind of controlled unitary, I would highly discourage that, because though theoretically it makes life easy, I mean, it's not practical. And I think we have to be very much our theoretical like proposals have to be very much compatible with the experimental capabilities. Otherwise, it's just that you are doing some theory which has no application. So yeah, I mean, if we want to get advantage, we have to basically think of the ways to, like get rid of this kind of tests. Yeah, which is good in the fault tolerant era, but at least for the next 5-10 years, I don't think that, such schemes will be available like with the current quantum computers. Other issue is, the trainability issue, that if you want to tune the parameters of a parametric quantum circuit, what happens that, the gradients vanish, and even the variance decays exponentially in the number of qubits. And that's a problem, because you update your parameters using some kind of, like gradient measurement or something. But if the gradient itself vanishes, how will you update the parameters of a parametric quantum circuit? So yeah, I mean, that means, yeah, this has been like a very big problem, and like people have been exploring this in detail, and like we also wrote a few papers, and I would say a lot needs to be done to understand it. And at the moment, it's one of the biggest bottleneck of variational quantum algorithms. And there can be many kind of Baron-Plateau, like noise induced Baron-Plateau, entanglement induced Baron-Plateau. I mean, yeah, like problem induced Baron-Plateau, like, yeah, many, yeah. So so far, like, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, I discussed the motivation. I think if you have a question now, maybe you could ask. Yeah.
So the motivation is to remove the feedback loop, is it?
Yeah, remove the feedback loop, remove the Baron-Plateau, remove, the control unit, controlled multi-qubit unitary. Because these things are like real challenges. I mean, feedback loop, first of all, makes things super slow. Controlled multi-qubit unitaries, they render the whole procedure infeasible, because who will give you yeah, maybe let me like share the video on like, yeah, talk maybe. So yeah, like who will give you, like this kind of a schemes where you have, like something like one ancilla controlling, let's say 50 qubits. Let's say you have like a controlled unitary has, like you have a control unitary where you have ancilla here, and here there, let's say 20 qubits or something. Like rotating 20 qubits using one ancilla, I mean, experimentally, I think that's nowhere feasible. Like, I mean, it's a very, very difficult task. So it looks very nice to, like use this Hadamard test on paper, but to implement that in laboratory, then yeah, not at all possible.
Like till like let's say like this using variational quantum algorithms, like like what is the benchmarking kind of things, in the sense that till how many qubits can we do the simulation, up to what time? Anything that we know? That
Yeah,
let's say 10 qubit simulation I can do for 5 minutes or 5 seconds, like that.
Yeah, so I think they did it for like for very small cases. I do not exactly remember the numbers, but for example, you can think about, like I don't think they are like very large. Like, so for example, this variational quantum simulator, because it has this controlled unitary, I don't think they have gone beyond, like maybe 3-4 qubits or something, because
Okay.
yeah. And similarly, the variational fast forwarding, I don't think that's also less than a few qubits. Yeah. So but I think maybe the trotter based implementations people might have done, but again, like you cannot go beyond, the coherence time and all. Like there are like other issues, like, like the trotter implementations can be like very difficult in the NISQ era. So, but like what is the largest molecule or something has been simulated? Maybe chemistry people can tell, but I don't remember on the fly, but I can search and tell you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But those are more like, Bodu, like those are more like engineering challenges that you could, like once you have the nice algorithm, then you can think about, some problem, and then like try to like adapt the algorithm for that particular problem and all. Yeah. So but the goal, I mean, what I'm presenting in this talk is more like what are the fundamental problems which are like plaguing the NIST and how can we bypass them or solve them. Yeah. So the three problems which I mentioned, like this feedback loop, it's one of the biggest problem. Like, I mean, we should never use it. I mean, like, okay, we should use it, but as less as possible, because this makes like the whole thing super slow. The second, this control unitary, and then this the Baron plateau, and
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Hi, sorry, I have questions.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm Benny from Dimitris Angelakis group.
Yeah.
So as in all the problem that you have mentioned is a general issue for like variational quantum algorithms, right? So
Correct,
you are
correct,
emphasizing the simulation part, but it also happens to the machine learning part, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
yeah, so as in like just wondering whether you like kind of like use whether all the trick that you are going to introduce later will be going to apply on machine learning part as well.
I mean, like,
specifically for simulation.
I mean, like, I haven't applied it there. I mean, the kind of like many things like follow trivially. So, I mean, for example, we have papers on like, ground state problem, Hamiltonian simulation. We are like writing something for recommendation systems also, like, I mean, at the moment. And the tricks and techniques that I will provide, like they will make things much more relatively rigorous than what is present in the literature. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, like, I mean, depending on the problem, you can kind of tune them. So I think you can apply them at different places, like, but I may not be able to cover them in this talk.
Yeah, sure. Just wondering.
Yeah. So already, like, you could see, like, I mean, our papers on ground state problem or the like Hamiltonian simulation. I mean, we focused on some problems which like captured the essence of most of the problems from some complexity class or something, and like we have been working on linear system and the ground state and the Hamiltonian simulation. But yeah, recommendation system, we are writing something, but you could definitely try to get some motivation from here and apply it to different places.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so first let's like look at so this is the setup, like that I present here. So yeah, like let me, I mean, just a moment. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I have this Schrodinger equation, and my study assumption is the Hamiltonian linear combination of unitary. And this assumption you have, like even in VQE and all the places, right? Hamiltonian linear combination of some poly terms, and you measure the expectation value of polys, and from there you get the expectation value of Hamiltonian. So this is like a very standard starting assumption in any NIST algorithm. And then I have, like I take my ansatz. My ansatz is basically a hybrid ansatz. So the rationale is that if you are doing hybrid computation, use the ansatz which is hybrid in nature. Don't use, I mean, you could use quantum states, but that could like induce some issues and all. So what you could do is you could use classical combination of quantum states. So you have some quantum state psi I, and you take, like you put certain weights on them. So you have, like whatever, like for quantum state psi 1, you have weight alpha 1, quantum state psi 2, you have weight alpha 2, and so on. So let's say you have L quantum states, M quantum states, like psi 1 to psi 0 to psi m minus 1. Actually, later I will show that you just need one quantum state, and you need to just like measure it, like sample it in different polyrotated basis, and your task will be done. So this is the ansatz, and you want it to be normalized, which means this phi, ket, and bra, like that should be equal to 1. That will induce some equation on alpha, and with the overlap between psi I and psi j, you will get alpha dagger E alpha equal to 1. So this is a normalization constraint that you have to satisfy. And then I, like, so, and this Eij is basically overlap between psi n and psi j, which can be, like in general complex number. And this Dij of the other matrix D that I will use is basically use the unitaries which define the Hamiltonian, and using that I create some overlap. So I use the psi I and the unitaries which define the Hamiltonian. I create some overlap. So the idea is this: if you are trying to solve a problem, build an ansatz which is problem aware, in the sense that it uses the information of the problem as much as possible. If you try to search randomly in the Hilbert space, you will get lost and you will have issues like barren plateau, this, that, whatever. So then design your ansatz which like harnesses the structure of the problem, information of the problem. So my Hamiltonian is a linear combination of unitaries or polys. Maybe I could use this information to like design my ansatz, and I will explain like I will use this UI to design psi I. Yeah. For the moment, you can assume that these UI are nothing but like poly matrices, like tensor poly strings, and that's okay because they form a basis. So just take poly strings, and and then I use some variational principle which is called Dirac and Frenkel variational principle, and that leads to like some differential equation where you can calculate E and D and solve it for alpha, and that's it. And these E and D matrices, they can be like very easily calculated. I can explain that. No need of control unitary, no need of Hadamard test or whatever, no control multi-qubit unitary, yeah, and no Hadamard test or anything. And also because you see that because I update my alpha, I'm not updating quantum state. So these alphas like they can be updated, and there is the classical parameters, they can be updated freely. So it's like it trivially bypasses the barren plateau problem. There is no barren plateau problem here by construction. Yeah. So this is how I define my ansatz. So I take all the unitaries which define the Hamiltonian, and using them I build a set, this set here. And then I have I ask the experimentally some quantum state psi which he can prepare. It could be some initial state or whatever, and using psi and this unitaries, I define something called k moment state. So it's like psi, and after that these unitaries act on it. So for example, you could think about like these unitaries are poly matrices. So then you have tensor poly matrices acting one after another. So for example, k moment state subject psi, and then u1, u2, u3 up to uk, something like this, or u1 power k, or u1 power k minus 1, u2, and so on. So for example, one moment state will be psi and u1 acting on it. So u1 psi, u2 psi, u3 psi, they are like one moment state. Similarly, two moment state will be u1 square acting on psi, u2 square acting on psi, and so on. So we denote the k moment state, the set of k moment states, like I denote that by like sk, and the singleton set psi, I call that s0, and the cumulative k moment states is defined as like the union of k moment states. And what I do that I define my ansatz as linear combination of k moment states. So for a particular k, I think there should be a k in the subscript here. So for a particular k, this is how I define my ansatz. Yeah. So you see that in my ansatz, there is a problem of there is the information of the problem goes into and I use those unitaries which define the Hamiltonian. Now let's say that my unitaries are poly matrices. They're tensor poly matrices. Then I know that product of poly strings is a poly string up to a prefactor plus minus 1 or plus minus iota, which you can calculate. So then you can think about that for poly strings, this is nothing but linear combination of different quantum state psi act. You have a quantum state psi and different psi I related to each other via some poly string. So like one could have some psi and then x tensor, y tensor, identity, whatever. The other one could be x tensor, z tensor, identity tensor, z, whatever. So you have linear combination of such quantum states. Yeah. So you just need to prepare one quantum state psi, and the other quantum states, they can be obtained by just one layer of poly. So this is the algorithm, very simple. First step, you need to construct the ansatz, and this happens on pen and paper, which I explained, like for a particular k, you can calculate it. On the quantum computer, you need to calculate D and E, and you can see that because poly string is a Hadamard, is a Hermitian matrix. You just need to basically calculate psi and some poly string psi, which can be just done by doing it by you just have to rotate in the appropriate poly basis, like one simple layer. You just put Hadamard if you want to measure x, z, then if you want to measure expectation value of z, you don't need to do anything. And similarly, you can measure y and so on. And you can see that what you need to do is that you just prepare a quantum state psi, and sample it in a basis, which is what quantum computers do at the moment. Like, I mean, all the tasks that we know, like, like the supremacy examples and all, they have been done using sampling. So what I'm saying that just sample it in a few bases, you will get your D and E matrix. The complex numbers are easy to get because product of polystring is a polystring have to prefactor ±1 and ± iota. And these two things, ±1 or ± iota, is what gives you the complex value. So that you can calculate classically. The difficult thing is to measure psi and some polystring and psi. And for that you use the quantum computer. And once you have the knowledge of D and E, then you can use classical computer to solve it. And there is no feedback loop back and forth. So you basically fix the department of the quantum computer and classical computer. You do not blindly use them, like, let's prepare, use a feedback loop, this, that will make the process super slow. That will induce barrier and plateaus and all those issues. So you see that there is 3-step algorithm. First step happens on pen and paper. Second step happens on a quantum computer. Third step happens on a classical computer. And there is no feedback loop. And if you are not happy with your answer, you can always take a higher K. But that can, that's basically changing the answers. That's not a feedback loop or something like between the classical and quantum. And this makes our algorithm super fast compared to, like the other variational algorithms, because while they take like days, this can be done in minutes. Like, sorry. Something issue. Sorry, like somewhat there is some issue with my mobile phone.
Okay.
Just a moment. We'll switch off. I mean, my CD got on. And yeah. Okay. So you see, right? I mean, the whole motivation and like the algorithm, at least at a high level. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is the algorithm, and then like it has, maybe I will just like rush a bit. So this is related to Krylov subspace idea. So the ansatz that we are building, I mean, there is a like you can guarantee that it can indeed find the right solution using something called Krylov subspace. And unlike in variational algorithms where people just try and like just get stuck and so on, here we are like systematically developing the ansatz. And lot of nice like studies have been done for this part, like for the Krylov subspace, which you can import here and make statements. Actually, there are many nice open questions which one can like explore in future. So you can think about QAS as a sampling based method with no classical quantum feedback loop. It circumvents the barrier and plateau problem by construction, no requirement of controlled multi-qubit unitarys, and it systematically generates the ansatz. We tried it for a few cases, and yeah, like I mean, actually, as you increase K, you get the actual the true result and so on. Like we went up to 10 sites and so on, but we can go even higher. Like I mean, we are just like now we are trying to find the largest molecule which has been simulated so far, and we like we will try to go beyond, like using our methods. Yeah. And we can also do not only real-time evolution, but also imaginary time evolution, which can be used to find the ground state. And you can see that as I increase K, at the end of the day, we get the ground state for some Ising model we tried here. And you can say that it's not very inefficient in the sense that using Hoeffding inequality, you can say that these overlaps, they can be calculated, like with 1 over epsilon square log 1 by delta copies. Yeah. You can show that the variational quantum simulator, which I explained in the beginning, is a special case of QAS in the sense that you can develop an ansatz where like you not only use alpha but also theta, and then like you can just show that they are a special case. Then we later like explain, like used all these techniques and like introduce this notion of called hybrid density matrix, which is kind of a generalization of a hybrid quantum state, which is like classical combination of like some psi I psi j, and we use that to like do open system dynamics, nonlinear dynamics, generalized dynamics, and give state preparation. Yeah. We later like also did some time dependent Hamiltonian, which can be very different from the time independent case, and we use the Lie algebra to like find our ansatz and so on. And we also compared a few algorithms, and you can see that like it's from actual quantum computer. You see that while other algorithms like they take like BQS takes like days, trotter takes like hours. This can be done in minutes, and we haven't optimized. Like I think we can do it in seconds, because you just need to sample it and that's it. Like, yeah, and you see that like it matches well with, you know, like the what is like, you know, predicted like, you know, like actual, like theoretically predicted value. Yeah. Then we later, like, you know, improved our algorithms, and like, you know, the differential equation part, you can show that it can be written as a quadratically constrained quadratic program. So like, yeah, I mean, and there are some features of this new algorithm that we propose, which can admit a SDP relaxation and show that a QAS is a special case of this algorithm. And then, yeah, like there are, you know, like some other benefits also. And you can show that like the Lagrangian relaxation of this QCQP, that quadratically constrained quadratic program that we get here, it admits a semi-definite relaxation, and you can also have a direct semi-definite relaxation. You can give a sufficient condition for when is a local minima or global minima. And the fast forwarding algorithm, which was, you know, proposed by people at Los Alamos, they recently like improved that. And what we did that, you know, like we combined some of the approaches, their approaches, our quantum assisted approach in the subspace simulators, to come up with this CQFF algorithm, which was archived yesterday. And it can do fast forwarding for, you know, like I think up to 10 to the power 5 times the coherence time of a system, while the earlier results were up to like just 40 times or 30 times. So I think yeah, the best was 40, like, you know, the 40 times the coherence time. But we managed to get up to like 10 to the power 5, like yeah, so something like that. Yeah. So yeah, so this is the current state of the art. So this quantum assisted simulator, the truncated Taylor quantum simulator, and the classical quantum fast forwarding have been contributed by our group. And this is the whole list. And in future, you might see, you know, like something, we are working with people at Los Alamos, and we are trying to see like how can we push these boundaries further. Yeah, like let's see. Yeah. So yeah, like I mean, that's it. Like with this, I conclude my talk. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are there any questions to Kishore? Thank you, Kishore. Anyway, let's see if there are any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Kishore, for its very nice talks. Actually, I have one question. So just now you say the Hamiltonian can be decomposed in the linear combinations of linear sum of the different unitary,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering like how the R scale with the number of qubits.
Yeah. So you're saying that how many qubits you require for that?
Yeah, as in like how like they're kind of. It's okay. So there are two questions here. So is there like so for a general Hamiltonian, is guaranteed that it can decompose into this like linear sum of different unitaries, and how many what is the like kind of like how do you like construct this? How many qubits do you need to construct this kind of system?
So that will depend on the size of the Hamiltonian, right? So if the Hamiltonian is, let's say, 2 to the power n cross 2 to the power n, you require n qubits. So yeah, but one can say that maybe there is no efficient decomposition of Hamiltonian in some basis, let's say tensor poly basis. But I'm saying that that's okay. Like, you know, I mean, you may not be able to capture all possible Hamiltonians, let's say efficiently. You can capture, because polymatrices, you know, the tensor polymatrices, they form a basis. So you can write any Hamiltonian in a linear combination of tensor poly. The question is whether you can do that efficiently or not. But I'm saying that in the all NISQ algorithm, this is like a starting assumption that you can do it efficiently. Like we only take into consideration those Hamiltonians where you have Hamiltonian as linear combination of, let's say, like polynomial number of or polylog number of, you know, like poly terms, like tensor polymatrices. Why is that? Because let's think about VQE. In VQE, calculate expectation value of Hamiltonian. And how do you calculate that? You calculate expectation value of each of the poly matrices, right? The tensor poly matrices. And you use the linearity of the trace to basically find the expectation value of the Hamiltonian. So if number of terms here like goes exponential, then you cannot run VQE or any, you know, like almost all of the variational quantum algorithms. So we start with this assumption, which is obviously, you know, like it doesn't capture all Hamiltonians, but it captures the physically relevant Hamiltonians, because in nature we have, you know, like local Hamiltonians, which means you have Hamiltonian which acts, like on like k local or something, like like think about the Ising model Hamiltonian. Like it's something like you have it's two local, right? So then the number of terms is not large. Like, and if you think about, I mean, already like two local Hamiltonians, like complexity theory wise, they are a very powerful class of Hamiltonians. Like using them you can solve very important problems in of great relevance. Even if you think about the NP complete problems, they can be like mapped to some diagonal Hamiltonian, where an NP complete problems are like, well, I mean, most of the relevant combinatorial optimization, the combinatorial optimal problems, they can be converted to NP complete. I mean, like converted to some Hamiltonian ground state problem for diagonal Hamiltonians. So yeah, I mean, it's already a very powerful class, and if we can show there, that's yeah, like I think that will be promising. But you are correct to say that it may not be efficient in general, but then that's, I mean, that's a limited, I mean, that we are not aiming for. And in the NISQ era, nobody is aiming for that, because you cannot like run VQE or any algorithm in that case.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah. Thanks. It's very clear.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to like explore these things, like let's say we can chat sometime and all, and I think that's the purpose of these talks, right? That people get to know what different people are doing, and like discuss stuff and so on. So yeah, I mean, you could read our papers, or I think in the review paper also we have mentioned these things, so get something from there. But yeah, I mean, I believe this framework like needs to be adopted widely, like I mean, because regular variational quantum algorithm framework has many of those issues which are making them difficult to scale, and like possibly show potential for quantum advantage.
Yeah. Nice. So are there any further questions to Kishore?
Not really. I don't have any questions.
Oh, Mujahid is finally here.
Oh, I am here, actually.
No, he
I
was.
suspect that I might have questions later, but then I know how to find Kishore. No?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Anyway, now I think we are past the allocated time. So let's thank Kishore for his introduction and his research recent works in NISQ algorithms and beyond. So yeah, let's formally, the idea of this thing is for everyone to know what each other are working on. So maybe if it should not just be like we have one talk and then we listen and then we forget. It should be more like, okay, am I interested in it, and do I want to take initiative of talking to Kishore or things like that. So we never know, right, depending on each other interests. So yeah, let's see, let's hopefully something comes out over the next 1 year. So yeah, okay.
Thank you very much, Kishore. Really.
Kishore,
Thanks a lot, everyone.
thank you, Kishore, and thank you. Bye. Chalo. Maybe I'll end the call here on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Thanks Mujahid, Bengi, Jingu.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah.